Well, welcome everyone to Cape Ann ARTWaves, coming to you by way of 1623 Studios located in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I'm Christine Fisher, your host today. My fellow co-producer, Jacqueline Genham DeFalco, will be your host for the next edition. We start out every program with a big shout out to our sponsors. The show is not possible without their generosity. They are Prince Insurance Agency, M.K. Fisher Visual Artist, Martha Anger of Compass Real Estate Brokerage, Protective Packaging, Calming Crow, and welcoming new to our team, the Cape Ann Savings Bank. We're thrilled to have them on board. We thank them and all of our sponsors for their wonderful support. We're also very appreciative of our partner, C Arts, who is our marketing partner, and 1623 Studios, who broadcast and distribute our show. We also want to thank Steve Lacey and Pat Berga for their contribution of the lovely music. Our program focuses on giving a platform to uniquely talented artists and makers, enabling them to share their story, their journey, insights, and their work. My guest today is someone who knows something about seizing the moment. Cheryl Dyment's life and art has gone through tremendous transformation in recent years, and her story is one that we all can learn from, no matter where we are on our journey. Originally a plein air painter, she is now painting primarily abstracts, working in oil, acrylic, or mixed media. Cheryl expresses an internal energy by the handling of her color and mark. Her paintings are lively, colorful, expressive, and in her words, I love this, proudly feminine. I want to learn more about that. Cheryl is an award-winning artist who is a member of the National Association of Women Artists out of New York, as well as the Massachusetts chapter, and has been actively showing her paintings in the greater North Shore at the Rockport Art Association and Museum, where she's an artist member, as well as a member of the experimental group. She also is active with the Rocky Neck Art Colony, the Newburyport Art Association, the Marblehead Art Association, where she had her first solo show in 2017, Journey into Abstraction. Currently on view at the Atlantic Wharf Gallery in Boston and up through April 30th is her piece Dare, in a wonderful exhibition sponsored by the National Association of Women Artists. So we have time to still catch it. Cheryl's professional background includes human resources, retail and fashion, being elected to the school committee, in addition to being a mom to two grown sons. In 1999, Cheryl listened to her inner voice, turning her attention to exploring her creative energy. She immersed herself in studying art and architecture with courses at Montserrat College of Art and the Radcliffe Institute, always seeking out wonderful instructors and doing workshops with respected painters. Along the way, Cheryl and her husband acquired a beautiful multi-acre property with a first period home and barn in Middleton, Massachusetts. She has renovated the barn into a stunning studio and will have the privilege and the pleasure to tour it in just a few minutes. Using the landscape and ocean as muses for inspiration, in Cheryl's words, gratitude and joy are essential for being able to create art. Welcome, Cheryl.
Hi, thank you. Great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show, Cheryl. Let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about your early years and then do a segue right into your art journey. You shared with me, and I thought it was such a wonderful story, that as a younger kid, you came up to Rockport with your dad, who was a scuba diver. You grew up on the North Shore, and he would scuba dive in Rockport off of Folly Cove, and you had so much fun drawing with charcoal on the rocks, creating images. I thought that was a great, I can visualize that. Take us away from there.
Okay, well, actually it was, I have to correct you, it was Loblolly Cove.
Oh, Loblolly, okay.
My younger years, I was totally involved with the arts, and whether it was drawing, painting, singing, acting, that was what I was all interested in. Spent all my time in high school, any extra time in the art room, but never would have considered, well, I couldn't consider going to art school. It was just not practical thing to do.
Mhm.
And so all of that got put on the back burner. And as you pointed out, I had a whole background in business and human resources, and working in New York City, and then eventually in Boston, and had 2 kids, school committee, all of that. And then finally it was 1999, I had an opportunity. My life there were some changes taking place. I had an opportunity to sit back and really think about what I was doing. And one of the hardest things I ever confronted was truly giving myself permission to pursue my interests. And this was in art. And I really, as my oldest son went off to be a freshman in college, a week after he left, I picked up the phone and called Montserrat and enrolled myself in a freshman drawing class there. So there I was with all the 18-year-olds. And so it started me off. And really, once I had that moment, it was, okay, just get out of my way and let me do this now. And so it was full steam ahead. I did drawing only for about 2 years because I really felt like I needed that foundation. And so it was a private drawing class and other courses at Montserrat, et cetera. And had a wonderful private drawing group I was in. And then finally it was, okay, I really feel like I'm really ready to start painting. And it's funny, I always knew I wanted to be a painter. There wasn't any in between. And so I, again, went directly there, took some private lessons with wonderful artist Kathleen Speranza out of Lynn. And at that time, just as I was beginning to experiment with a palette, etc., we took a trip to Ireland. And my husband was working over there. And so I was going around just taking photographs and sketching, etc. I came home and started painting like a madwoman. It's like I turned one of the bedrooms in an extra bedroom into a studio space for myself, cramped as it was, but all I could do was paint what I had seen. And Ireland was amazing. And it really did kick me off going into that direction as a plein air painter. So about that time, I also got interested in, getting involved with the greater art scene and joined the Newburyport Art Association. And I was really thrilled when I entered my first show there. And I had 2 paintings that were accepted in a juried show. And that was very exciting. One of them was Bog Cotton, which was from Ireland. And then from my experiences there. And then the other one was also a landscape painting from my Irish experiences. And then at that time also, a few years after that, we took a trip to Italy. And I did a painting experience there, made some lifelong friends, which of course, again, another beautiful place to paint, very inspirational. But meanwhile, always in the back of my mind, I loved the idea of painting larger, and I realized I needed more room to express myself. Again, it was an issue of, how do I get all this into a 9x12? It just so I kept working, and I then let's see, it was in 2009. Well, excuse me, I'm going to step back. In 2005, we had been looking for a larger space so that I could have a studio, and we found we literally moved down the street from Danvers to Middleton, and found this property that's pretty spectacular. It's almost 3 acres, and we have a small orchard, but there's a first period house on it. It's an old farmhouse with an attached barn. And we hired some contractors that fall, And by that spring, which would have been 2006, I had a studio space. So it's in the second floor of the attached barn. So it's literally, I can go right from the house to the studio, which is fabulous. And so I can be here at any time. And we built a studio within the barn. So even, and I live in this old house with low ceilings. Well, I have tremendous ceilings and tremendous height and light and warmth within this studio. And, there's nothing like, for me, there's nothing like being here in the wintertime and painting. It's the best.
Well, I think your studio has been a game changer. That's fair to say, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So carry on, because I know 2013 was a pivotal year for you, as was 2017. And I want to be sure that we also tuck in a couple of more images. So,
okay. Yes. 2009, I'm going to go back to that.
Yeah.
So I was painting in this studio, and again, always wanting to go a little bit bigger. And so there was an opportunity for a big work show at the Newburyport Art Association. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And by big, it had to be 36 by 48 at a minimum. Okay, but I knew that I wasn't going to be going to a regular landscape such as I've been doing. And so how am I going to do this? So I said, I painted from a memory. And once, so I did a painting called Regression. And it was an amazing experience just doing the painting because it was based on a memory I had from when I was 19 years old. Again, here's my North Shore roots. I was at Good Harbor Beach and I got pulled out by an undertow or a rip current, and as did a few other people that day. And I basically survived that for two reasons. One, I knew enough to turn on my back and float. And in that situation, you're either going to regress, which is what I did, or panic, and then you're in trouble. So I did end up getting rescued by a lifeguard. But to paint it, which this is the part that shocks a lot of people, my memory of that day is beautiful.
Wow.
I was in a state of shock all day, but it was, all I remember is the sky, the water, and the sunlight, and the curvature of the earth. I was far out, and that was what I saw. And I was totally there and enjoying it, and really gave the lifeguard a hard time when he came to rescue me. At any rate, fast forwarding, I did that painting, which ended up being awarded a prize in a national show that was held at the South Shore Art Center. It's called Regression, or The Day I Didn't Drown. But once I started it, I couldn't stop painting it. I have 15 pieces, and I showed that as an entire show 3 different times, 3 different solo shows with that in various locations. And I tell you, to this day, I could paint that again. I mean, it's something that's in me. And it just, and since it's a beautiful memory.
Well, Cheryl, it's a beautiful painting too.
Thank you.
It really is. It's very serene. And I think it ties in beautifully to what you just said, that emotionally you rose to the occasion. You were able to keep yourself calm. You were able to witness the beauty around you. And that's
really
absolutely remarkable. And then you channeled all of that energy later into your painting and your series of paintings.
Well, it was really something. Who knew that was going to be, coming back to me again after so many years. So then, again, so this was great. I had started expanding. This work was obviously more abstract because all based on a memory. And then I had another occasion. It's funny how these things push you to another level. Around 2013, I had some other medical issues that came up. And again, caused me to ask myself, what am I waiting for?
Mm.
And so my work really then took a turn towards, I'd say, non-objective abstraction. And at that time, I also applied for membership as an artist at the Marblehead Art Association and used all abstract work. And I was thrilled to have been accepted as a member. And it was very confirming for me too, because this was the first time I had really put myself out there as an abstract artist. And so then in 2017, I had a great show at the Marblehead Art Association. They gave me the ballroom for my own show, and I exhibited 34 paintings. It was called Journey into Abstraction. Again, a wonderful experience. Then this was followed up by another medical event in August. August 6th exactly, on a Sunday morning, I woke up with a headache and all headaches, and ended up, it turned out I had a brain aneurysm rupture. The good thing was that I had a sense that this may have been what it was, only because I knew that I had these two small aneurysms that they were watching. And I had literally just read 3 days ago in the paper about a gentleman who had the same experience. And the whole time I was reading that article, I thought to myself, oh, why are they calling 911? So when this started happening to me on Sunday morning in bed, I said to my husband, call 911. And it was, again, it was so many things went in my favor. I ended up at Brigham Women's Hospital. I had a crack team of people, you know, multiple hours of surgery and almost 3 weeks in the hospital. I mean, I am so, so grateful. You know, I wouldn't be here otherwise. And it was really an amazing experience, a painful experience, but an amazing experience. And again, though, when I got out and was recovering, it took me a long time to recover that part of my brain. That connection to paint in an abstract manner was, it just took a long time to get there. I remember one time I came into the studio and I tried to do some abstract work, and I just had to leave, and I literally went and worked on our taxes. I mean, it was just the difference between something concrete and something abstract. It couldn't have been more, you know, what an example. At any rate, about a year and a half, almost 2 years later, you know, the whole time I was recovering, I was also, you know, constantly reading and trying and doing some online tutorials and things like that. And then finally, again, pushing myself, you know, not wanting to lose any time, I decided I would try this again. And I changed up my materials. Up to this point, I'd been working strictly in oils. And so I said, I'm going to try working on some paper. Everybody always says that you can be looser. Well, it's true. I would recommend it to anybody who feels like they're stuck. And so I had some wonderful big sheets of paper and started just letting it go. And it was, you know, and just, again, kept on going.
Right. Well, Cheryl, this is a really good point, I think, for us to talk a little bit more about your studio. So I'd love to show this wonderful video that you shot. But before we move off, there's a piece that I'm not sure you mentioned, The Descent.
Yes, yes.
Let's not forget that before we move into talking about your studio.
Okay, The Descent was one of the pieces that was exhibited at that show in Marblehead. And it's a very, I guess it has a lot of meaning to me. I was really trying to transition away from doing the floating paintings, as I refer to them. And it was, you know, it was one of those periods where it was hard not to paint that kind of work. And so The Descent brought me again to the water, which it, you know, obviously is. And there is action taking place in it. It goes from the top to the bottom, and there is something descending into the water.
Mhm.
But there is some light at the top,
Mhm.
and it's just something that was very meaningful to me.
Mhm.
And I really, I have it still, and I love it. And
Good. I'm glad we talked about it. I'm glad we talked about it. It just enhances your story and also your experience really of internalizing, right? Internalizing
Yes.
and then expressing. So let's get to your studio. You have this fabulous video that we're going to show right now. Just kind of walk us through it a little bit. Give us some of your highlights.
Okay. All right. So, at any rate, as I said, you can enter the studio. You go up some stairs from my kitchen area into the studio area, and you open up into this light. My house is an old house with low ceilings. You come into this studio, and all you have is light around you, and it's a wonderful space. I'm very spoiled. It's all a post and beam structure. The barn itself is an 18th century structure, and literally there are pegs. I mean, I can see the pegs in the walls, on the beams. When the studio was constructed, we made sure that we left the beams exposed, so you always knew where you were.
Right, right. Well, it's a nod to the heritage of your property.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
And then you can see out. There's a little balcony that we built off the other end of it, and you can see out into the orchard and the land beyond that. And it's a great little space. I have a little stove over there, and it's just couldn't be better. It couldn't
Sounds
be better.
very, very idyllic. And I thank you for taking that video, because I'm sure our listeners are enjoying your tour. This is the perfect segue. I want to talk about your process, and I know you do too. And you mentioned that, since recovering from your dramatic health scare with your aneurysm, once you were able to recover, you've been painting with abandon, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about your process, because I loved so many of your comments when you and I talked earlier. Walk us through.
Okay. Well, usually, some of the process depends on what kind of surface what kind of support I'm going to use. I mentioned the paper before. And so when I'm working on paper, what I love to do is just do some light sketching with a graphite pencil, and just get some motion going in there. And it opens you up to so many possibilities. I think the start of any painting is so exciting, because and the possibilities are limitless at that point.
Right.
And then the other thing that might happen, especially if I'm using a canvas, maybe painting in oil, is I'll tone a canvas, and just to get something on there as a background, but then go in and do some kind of light sketching. It could be with a light wash of paint, but just to get going. And so often I don't necessarily know what I'm going to paint when I come in here. I do find that a lot of my work is palette driven. So I may have a palette in mind that I'm going to use. And that, if anything, will guide where things end up going. Because part of what's so fascinating about painting is getting those marks down there, which again, mark making, it's just, I love getting those marks down there. And this is where the expressive style really takes form, I think, is getting those initial marks down there and sort of staking your claim as to what's going to happen here. And then you're working off of that. It's like a call and response to the situation. What is this calling for you? And then working off of relationships.
That's right. I love that expression. And it really becomes a dialogue, doesn't it? It becomes a conversation.
Absolutely. absolutely.
Yeah. I think you framed that up beautifully. I would love to show a number of pieces here that I think will beautifully further illustrate your process. Let's talk about this first image, Unleashed.
Okay, Unleashed. Unleashed is a very special painting to me. It's one of the very first pieces I did when I first started painting after my aneurysm rupture. And it just, when it was happening, I just kept going with it. You know, there wasn't any stopping. I just kept grabbing the materials. And again, this is where the materials I was using really made a difference. I was going with, it ended up being a mixed media piece. So I was really grabbing everything but the kitchen sink to put onto that. And just feeling like I could do that.
Yeah.
It was okay.
That's right. It was okay. And, you know, just full of joy, right? I mean, Unleashed, full of joy. I think that's a great title. Let's talk about Feeling Cool.
Feeling Cool. Again, that was just all in acrylic. Again, it's on this beautiful Arches oil paper that I had bought a roll of. And again, this is where the dynamic was pushed by the palette choice. You know, I had a lot of those. I mean, you know, working with the black is very powerful, and then choosing that blue to offset it with the white background just gave it its oomph. Right. And I mean, it felt cool because, of course, it was all cool colors.
I think it's quite spectacular. How about Light Falls?
Light Falls. Now that is a piece that it's mixed media. It's on paper. It's a smaller piece. So I was trying to, because you can't just have all large pieces all the time.
Right.
But it's a smaller piece. It's 18 by 24 sheet of paper, I think Strathmore paper. And I was using a lot of acrylic wash and graphite and China marker and some other markers and maybe some pastel, oil pastel. No, anyway, it just, again, this was really responding to, this is an example of responding to the marks that are there.
Yeah.
You know, getting the relationships. And that's again, for me, the challenge doing it on a smaller piece.
Right. Sure. No, I can appreciate that. We can see that your average size work is quite large, you know, just behind you. We can see that. Let's talk about Garden Party, which you have the good fortune of being awarded the Harold Rotenberg Award for provocative, imaginative, experimental painting with the Rockport Art Association Museum in 2020. Bravo.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I was thrilled. Yes, I became a member there. I think it was the year before I became an artist member. So I was really excited that had won such a wonderful award. And I really like this painting. This is, I guess, kind of an example of when I use that term proudly feminine. I think that this is a good example of what I'm referencing.
I do too. Yeah.
It's a lot of violets, and where did it start? You know, it was, is this a garden? Is it underneath the ground? Is it in the ocean? You know, I'm always struggling. You know, water always seems to come out in everything I do, but then, you know, having the gardens around me and the landscape and the celebration that a party intones is part of what I wanted to impart there. And not being afraid to do all that, the art, the marks, give it its energy. You know, it's in the bold color, while they're softer colors, but it's still bold.
Right. So, yeah, still bold. And honestly, it's still joyful. You know, it's very joyous to me. And I think that is a signature of yours in terms of your most recent journey and how your art has evolved. And honestly, you're on fire. You've got a lot going on. You have a number of shows coming up. Talk to us about your wonderful image, Dare, which is downtown at the Atlantic Wharf Gallery through April 30th.
Yes, well, thank you. And I'm going to say this while I remember it. I just found out this morning that stay is extended for another day and until May 1st. And we're going to have an in-person reception.
Oh,
I know, but the first on Sunday, May 1st from 12 to 2. And so the painting that is there, Dare. Well, honestly, I think it's a large piece. It's 56 by 51.5, I believe. Again, it's a work on this wonderful heavy arches oil paper, and it's framed. It's under plexiglass because of its size, and it's black and white, and
cool piece.
And everything in between. And I believe that's where I came up with the title for it, because I was I can do this. I can dare to just put out a black and white painting there in that size, and it's a powerful piece. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about painting on a large scale is the physicality of it. I mean, I can't even tell you what it was like to clamp that thing down, to wrestle it onto a support so I could paint on it. But I mean, I love that physicality of painting in a large piece. And I think that's a good example of it.
That's a great example. I happen to really favor that piece. Of course, I really like old black and white. I like all of your work, particularly the more recent. I just love the way that you've channeled your energy and your experience, into your art and the way that it has evolved. So Cheryl, you've got a couple of other shows. We have another image, Spring in My Step.
Yes. So this is going to be at the Newburyport Art Association. They have a big work show. Again, they have one annually. This was April 1st to April 17th. And Spring in My Step, again, it's just showing, I think, a lot of joy about being here and being alive. And the title came quite naturally to me when I had finished working it, and I was just enjoying working with that palette that I had. And again, it's a mixed media piece. There is, everything on there between acrylic and pastel and oil also, and graphite, charcoal. It's just, I just enjoy having a lot of fun, allowing yourself to have fun.
Yes, I love the name of the piece too.
Well,
My Step. It's just really reflects where you are. We have another work that I want to be sure that we talk about because we're closing down. It's Untitled, and it's going to be in your show, I believe, at the Rockport Art Association Museum this next fall.
Yes, that's true. I'm going to have a solo show there. September 17th through October 6th. And there's no title for the show or anything yet. And there's no title for this piece yet either. It's unframed still. It's sitting here in my studio. And again, it was another example of trying things out. The background was such that I was painting this and I didn't know where I was going with it. And I just decided I was going to wet it down, which I was, am I going to ruin this? And I just wet it down and just took my hands and smushed all that color around and, taking those chances.
Yeah.
And it was, and I was so happy I did. And then to add that violet in there, punched it up.
Very, very cool. I think you hit the nail on the head, though. I mean, I think for all of us artists, it's all about taking chances, isn't it? It's all about risk taking. You got to take it because we don't know exactly what we're going to end up with, what's on the canvas or on the paper.
No, I mean, the whole thing, the process is what keeps me coming back for more.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, Cheryl, I've got to say, what a pleasure to talk to you. Really, I just so admire how you dealt with your challenges. I admire your beautiful evolution of your art. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it was fun.
Yeah, good. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I want to thank our sponsors once again. I want to thank Anders Johnson once again for being our magnificent videographer who does just wonders behind the scenes with all of our recordings. Please check the listings behind me for how you can access this recording. We've been talking to Cheryl Dyment, everybody. Great to see you, Cheryl. Thank you.
Thank you.